right, Slippy, welcome to the Underground Society podcast, man. I just wanted to start off this interview by saying that kind of starting with your name, you haven't always gone
Yeah,
by
yeah.
Slippy, and I know you had a rebrand in 2018, so I kind of want to add some questions about that. What was kind of the reasoning for your rebrand, and what were you before you were Slippy?
So before Slippy, I was going by Slips and Slurs, and it was
Okay.
like, it was a name that was like it's from a song lyric from this band, Destroy Rebuild Until God Shows. It's like Craig Owens of Chiodos. It was like his side project. I was
Mm.
just like, I think I was just like 18. I was just like looking for like cool lyrics that like sounded mysterious. I'm like, yeah, Slips and Slurs. That's like tight, dude. Like hell yeah. But then like everyone thought I was a duo, and like
Oh,
as I went
yeah.
about doing stuff, I kind of realized I'm like I don't want to be this like mysterious like no one knows who I am producer. I just can't keep that up, and I'm just
Right.
like everyone was already calling me Slippy and everything, and I was like, you know what, like let's just do that. Like let's just do that. It feels
Yep.
more personable to me. It feels like it's more straightforward. It's also like easier to say. Like if I'm in like a club and someone's like, "What's your alias?" and I'm like, "Slips and Slurs," you'd be like, "What did you just say?"
What? Yeah.
And, like, what are you talking about, man? Like, and like someone told me that as reasoning, and at first I was like, "That's dumb. That's like that doesn't matter." And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, "No, that like actually does matter."
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting that like people are already calling you that, but I guess based off your previous alias, that would make sense. It's just
Yeah,
easier
yeah.
and shorter for you to go. Yeah, and also like yeah, when you're in a club, yeah, it is sometimes. I mean, that's where like 90% of your networking happens when you go out to
Hmm.
shows and meet new people. So yeah, you want to be as straightforward and like easy as possible with your
Totally.
name and your branding. Yeah. Do you think it has helped your trajectory of your career since you kind of rebranded and dropped the?
I think so. I think
Okay.
so because like it feels like that name allows for different styles of music, whereas one felt like very entrenched in like this is like dark, moody
hmm
music or whatever. Now I'm like, okay, this name can pretty much like apply to whatever, just branding wise, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I mean, it was tricky at first, right? Like when we did the switch and everything, I had a lot of help with Monstercat making that happen and everything.
hmm
But like Spotify wouldn't let me like merge profiles, so I had to like basically restart my Spotify followers. I started from zero again, which so I had like a
Uh,
like couple of, like tens. I think it was like almost 20,000 on the other one before, and so had to start again from zero. And like if any artist is like aware of release radar,
yeah.
pretty important.
Yes.
So it took a while to get like everything kind of back to where it was at, but once it got moving, I mean, it's only like continued to go past that point. So, but
Do you
yeah,
think because you already kind of had an established fan base and like how was first of all how did you communicate that to your audience and then
yeah,
to follow that up is like how do you think it was a quicker process rebuilding when you
oh
had to?
yeah, totally. I mean, it's like a couple things like about how it was conveyed. Like,
hmm
it was kind of teased in a funny way. Like when I put out a song with like Harry Shada like ages ago. They Monstercat like uploaded it, and for like I think like the first like hour, it just said Slippy, and I was like, "Why does it say that? What's up with that?" And then they changed it back, and it was like, "Oh, that must have just been a mistake, silly Monstercat." And then February of next year, it was like, "No, like we're actually doing
This is
this."
real.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but I did like a little rollout, like you know, kind of like blacked out on the socials, posted like just like this blank teaser image.
hmm
I went and like I was in college at the time, so I like rented a camera from the school, and like we went to this like abandoned like paint factory with like some friends,
Oh,
like some
sick.
smoke bombs, and like filmed this little promo video for it and everything. So like there was like a little bit of like rollout behind it too. It wasn't just
Okay.
like, hey, my name is this now. It was like, no, we're
Yeah.
gonna make this like this dramatic thing that
I,
like look, this is like the new era, like we're changing it up a little.
I've seen a
Yeah.
couple people go through the rebranding, especially after they have like an actual following and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
it's always interesting. People seem to kind of go about it in kind of different ways sometimes, but
Totally.
that's a smart way to go about it. Is like have an actual proper rollout for it and like announce it to
Yeah,
everyone.
and
Kinda
I think
like,
it helped too because like the style of music didn't like drastically change.
okay,
Like
yeah,
I was like this is like still at a higher level than the stuff I was previously putting out, but it wasn't like I went from like, oh, I'm putting out like dubstep to like, hey, here's my new indie pop album.
right, yeah,
Like it's I don't think it was too jarring for anyone, and the fan base was also pretty much the same, right? It was like I'd been releasing with Monstercat, and I continued to release with Monstercat with that stuff, so. It was
yeah.
like the same fan base that like could understand this stuff, and I mean, I got a lot of like questions and like people like, I hate the name change. This is terrible. Blah blah whatever. I'm like, well, it's done. So like, I don't have to tell you. Like a little late now, but like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I did notice when I was doing my research for you that you really you were working and you still do work a lot with Monstercat. What was
Totally.
kind of the reasoning for that? What was kind of the relationship there that you've built and why were they like the main people that you were associated with?
Yeah. So I mean, when I was like first started out making music, like when I was like in high school, like Monstercat was a label that I listened to a lot, and so I
hmm
was really aware of them and I liked their music a lot. And so when I was looking to like, okay, I'm gonna start like doing this on a more professional level, right? Like not just like kind of putting out stuff on SoundCloud, whatever. I'm like, oh, I want to make like a new brand for that, and I want to like actually go ahead and like really put some effort behind this. And I had like one song, which was the first song that came out with Monstercat, and I was like, they have trap artists, but they don't really have anyone like doing this specific style. And I knew they're an eclectic label, so I was like, maybe like I can kind of like fill this gap in the market here because I like their music and I think this is a good song and like it's not the same as the artists that they're putting out. So it's not a situation where like, oh well, X artist is already doing that we have signed. We don't need this, right?
Right.
So luckily I sent it to them. They're like, yeah, this is great. Do you have any other music? And I was like, no. Like,
no.
Like at the time it was funny because like I had that song and like I had a couple others, but like my laptop that I made it on had like died. And I was like, damn, I like need to like make more music, and like I'm like in the process of learning Ableton and trying to make new music at the same time because I made that first song in FL Studio, and then when I got a MacBook after that, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like try to learn Ableton now. It took me like 6 months to get that figured out, so that was a bit of a delay. I'm lucky that like I had sent stems of that song to a friend to get him to mix it because shout out No Mana, by the way. He mixed that song down like ages ago, but. Yeah, without having those stems, I don't think I would have been able to like properly release that song because like there were some small changes that they wanted to make and some other stuff. So I just had to change it with the stems and be like, hey, could you mix this again real quick? Like,
yeah. I love his music. I'm actually a big fan of his music.
Oh yeah, he's a great producer.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned that first song you released was more of like a trap, like eclectic trap.
Yeah.
Song. But I also know that you produce like drum and bass, you produce dubstep, and you produce a few other things. Why did you choose to? I mean, obviously, you probably just like producing all the different genres, but what was kind of the determining factor of like going that route versus choosing like one core genre to focus on?
It's very similar to like the name thing, right? Like when I started out, I was like, this is a trap project. I'm going to make trap on this project. And then like 6 months went by and I'm like, fuck, I can't just keep making trap, dude. Like I got to make some other genres. And like it kind of happened naturally. Like I was really focused on it for a while. And like the first couple of releases were trap. I think the first one that kind of strayed away was this one called Malicious, and it was like it was trap, but like the beginnings of each of the drops were like 4 on the floor, like with an 808, and then it would like go into halftime. I'm like, okay, it's like kind of trap, like is it? And then after that, we put out this song Wi-Fi Tears, which ended up being one of my biggest. Actually, I think my biggest song, and that's a dubstep song. And the reason that I justified at the time was my friend who I was collaborating with was also like a dubstep artist, and I'm like, okay, well if we do this hybrid of stuff, then it makes sense. So it was like. First drop was dubstep, middle section was like future bass, third half was like basically dubstep with an 808, hyper trap. It was dubstep with an 808. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just started to branch out, and the more I did that, the more I was like, I was just enjoying the process more while doing that, and I was like,
it keeps things interesting and fun, right?
It keeps things interesting, and then outside of that, like I've always made like all kinds of different genres. Like when I was starting out. I was making all kinds of genres just to see what I liked, and turns out like I like a lot of music. So I know how to make a bunch of different genres, and at the end of the day, like now these days when I sit down, like I don't really think about it too much unless I'm like really trying to like I need to make a pack of 5 dubstep songs or 5 songs for whatever I'm trying to do, right? But if I'm just sitting down, I'm like I'm just gonna create whatever comes out. Like I'm not gonna worry about that. I'll figure out the branding of that stuff later and like how I'm gonna roll it out later.
Yeah, I've only seen a few people really like do well with that, and just to name a couple, like Nitty Gritty.
It's tricky. Nitty Gritty is the number one example.
Amazing. Also, Blank has done a really good job at that. He makes mid-tempo, he makes drum and bass, he makes dubstep. It's only been like a few people that have really done a good job at like and still like making all these different genres, but making it work in their brand too.
And it's tricky too because I mean, even someone like Nitty Gritty, like he's made it work, but then like he really popped up with Side Piece.
Yeah,
and like Side Piece is a dedicated house project, and like they make great house. I love their stuff, but like it definitely is a harder route. But at the end of the day, like I don't know, it's just how I landed that I'm like I can't just do one thing.
Yeah,
like I can't find one thing, and I'm like at this point I'm like I'm gonna make whatever genre comes out. I don't care as long as it sounds like me. That's what matters. So that's basically where I've landed on it.
That's awesome. When you started kind of making and really got to that professional level, you already released a track on Monstercat. When you started making some of this other style of music, how did Monstercat feel about that? Have you released some of that like different genres on Monstercat, or did that open other doors to release on other labels, or like how did that work out?
Yeah, I mean it's here and there, right? Like a lot of the stuff I did put out with them, and like I think the only one that they were like kind of questioning was like when, and like I don't blame them, I questioned it too, but like there was like this group of us that like we were just hanging out. It was a bunch of Monstercat artists, and we just kind of like had been virtually hanging out, and we made this song. It's called like "Break the Silence," and it's like an indie dance song. It's like just a straight up indie dance song, and like so like the end has like some like trap future based influence, but like, you know, I was a part of it, but at the end we're kind of like, this doesn't really fit the brand like at all, but like it's part of this like 5-year compilation, and it's just like a one-off like fun thing. So it ended up being like, all right, screw it. And, like I think my name's like last on it, so it's like whatever. But it was fun, and it was just like a fun collaborative experience of like, hey, we have 5 artists on this song, and we somehow made it work. You know, for the most part, they've been pretty like good about everything. Like you know, it's on a song by song basis for sure, like any label. But yeah, they're not like, oh, you should really do this or really do that. They're not going to push me in any direction one way or the other.
One style of music that I really like from you, that I think what is my favorite from you, is your drum and bass stuff. And I know you released your drum and bass. You released on the drum and bass comp for Space Yacht, and you've done some other work with them too. Who has been, like, obviously besides Monstercat, 'cause that's kind of what seems to be home base for you. Who has been some of your more favorite like labels outside of that to release on?
I love releasing with Night Mode. They're fantastic to work with.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because I haven't talked to too many people who have released on their label, and I know the owner and the founder of it is like a YouTube gamer, right? What's the story of that streamer. Label?
From what I understand, I mean, it's kind of like, it's a similar story to a lot of these labels that are born out of YouTube and streaming, right? It's, we need music for our content that is, 1, copyright free, but 2, is actually good, that people actually want to listen to, right? Because like you have copyright free music, but like it's not very good sometimes, or it's, you know, it's kind of a muzak is like the term, right? It doesn't have any character. It's just made for like, you know, mass consumption, background music, you know, whatever. But the idea with Night Mode, from what I understand, right, and I haven't like personally discussed this with him, but from what I understand, it's that, you know, they wanted good music that they like, that is copyright free and that can work in those situations, and, you know, can be in that, you know, intersection between dance music and gaming culture. So very similar to Monstercat in that sense, right? They're the same kind of niche.
That makes sense. Yeah. Were you? Because you liked Monstercat's music back when you first started kind of on this journey, were you a gamer before that, or are you a gamer now?
Oh yeah. I feel like everyone in dance music like plays games.
To a certain degree.
I don't know too many people who don't.
Yeah.
Literally before we hopped in this call, I was like a Discord call playing Overwatch with some other producers.
Who do you normally game with?
These days it's like Black Sheep, Yojas. Like I know you know these guys. You did one with Revo as well. He was in the call. Yeah, so it's all those guys out here.
Awesome.
And you know, elsewhere too.
Are you from Are you from the East Coast?
No. I moved out here in December of last year.
Okay, where are you originally from?
So I grew up in Illinois, like suburbs area, so like Naperville, Aurora area, Yorkville. I don't think I do. Every time I say Yorkville, no one knows what I'm talking about. But that's where I grew up for the most part. Like I spent like pretty much all of like end of grade school through high school there, and then I went to Florida State for college.
Got it.
And then my sister also went to school in Florida. My parents moved down to Florida, so I was there for a little bit as well.
Okay.
After I graduated.
What did you go to school for?
What's the term? Commercial music was the program.
Okay.
So
you did go to school for like somewhat music, what you're actually doing now.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So it was that, and then a business minor like came with the program.
Got it.
So, but it's effectively what I'm doing, right? It's like, you know, music in a commercial sense, like recording bands and like doing stuff production wise, and music for film and things like that. So, and then, you know, I had to. It's a proper like, you know, Florida State University is like an actual like proper music school. So like, I had to have an instrument that I played. So like, I played percussion, and like, so I played that through the college level and was like playing in ensembles the whole time.
That's
as well.
Did you enjoy that?
I enjoyed it. It was hard to balance. I was doing a lot of stuff, but it was fun. Yeah.
Did you? What did that entail? Were you playing at like games and stuff, or like what were you?
Yeah, I wasn't in the marching band. Okay. I auditioned for it my first year, and like I screwed up. Like I thought the packet was like I had to learn this certain thing, and it was like, no, you actually had to know like these 2 pages, and I was like, I didn't even get to those pages because I had to do the beginning. So like I totally like flopped the audition. Like it ended up being a good thing because it's so time consuming, and I just literally did not have time for it.
Yeah.
So I was playing in like, you know, the wind orchestras and stuff like that, just in the percussion section in the back. And we also had like a percussion ensemble, so that was the most fun. Just like literally just the percussionists, and we played stuff with that, and got to like go and play some stuff elsewhere outside of the school. So
nice.
Yeah, it was fun. I didn't have to do anything too crazy because they're like, he's the producer guy. Don't give him the crazy part. So I'm like, cool, this is just fun.
Sick. Yeah. It's not what I want to do. So
like,
awesome.
like I still have to play it well, but like you know, they're not gonna give me the like, hey, here's the crazy xylophone part that you're gonna need to spend like 4 hours a day practicing. Like they were cool about it, thankfully. Yeah.
That makes sense then, because I was gonna give you props for being really like, I feel like not in today's day and age with Ableton and
Mhm.
some of the tools that you have access to with scales and stuff like that. Not everyone, like, there's a lot of producers that don't even know like music theory and they just kind of produce by
No,
ear.
yeah.
But for you, it seems like you really have the technical side down, and
Thank you.
especially with I know you've done some work for Defire and you also do lessons, one-on-ones
Mhm.
and stuff with people. When did that kind of start happening? When did you kind of first think like, oh, I can actually start making money through this revenue stream? And what made you want to teach people?
I mean, yeah. So before I like moved here, I was already doing it a little bit. I had one student that I was working with, and I was doing one-on-ones with him, and I continued doing that for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it was basically just like once I moved out here, I was like, I need more income sources because Los Angeles is super expensive. So I started like, hey, I'm gonna really open this up. I don't just want to do like private. I want to be like, hey, this is public, and like hit me up, and like we'll figure it out, right? So I started doing that, and then Dayfire hit me up to do stuff. They're no longer in operation,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm doing them now with Rising Icons and with
Okay.
the Forbidden Society.
Yep.
So those are two other feedback services, and I do those like 2 to 3 times a week, depending on
Sweet.
like what all's going on. But yeah, it's just been like a good way, one, to like interact with people on a more like personal level,
Yeah.
and then also make some money. And then I mean, on top of that too, I don't know, I feel like teaching has made me want to understand my craft more, because like I don't want to be going in there and like giving people a shitty lesson and
Yeah.
being like, that was a total waste of my money. Like I'm not out here to like, I just want to get money. Like, no, I want this to be like a worthwhile service for you if we're gonna do it. Right? I don't want to waste your time and your money.
You said you do work. You've done work for Defire. You've done work
Mhm.
for like some of these other online schools and stuff. Do you
Sure.
also do one-on-ones by yourself? Is that something that you also do, or
Yeah, the one-on-ones
Okay.
by myself. I'm not currently doing them, but
Okay.
yeah. So I was doing like one-on-one lessons, and that'd just be like Zoom. Like you hit me up, and we
Yeah.
we pick a day, and like, hey, what do you want to go
it's
over?
like a
And
meeting?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, basically like a meeting.
Yeah.
It's like a one hour thing. I would usually end up like going over, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
hey, we have like some more stuff to talk about. Like, cool, whatever. Like, we'll go over. It's fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
What do you prefer, a school or doing one-on-ones, and why?
I like doing the one-on-ones because it's like you get a little more in depth. The feedback streams are cool, but you have to get through a lot in like a set period of time.
Yeah.
And also like a lot of the time I'm working with like an audio file. So it's like I can give as detailed feedback as I can give with an audio file. Whereas if we're doing a one-on-one and you have sent me your whole project, cool, I can like really dive deep into this and like
Yeah.
even like kind of like mix it down a little bit, like whatever it comes down to. It just lets me get more in depth and like figure out what's actually going on. Because like if I'm like, there's something wrong here, but I can't really pinpoint. Like I'm doing my best, but I think it's this. I don't really know. And they're not in the live stream, so they can't communicate with me. It's like, okay, well, there's only so much I can do here.
Yeah.
But I do like doing that too, though, because it's like it's like rapid fire. Like, oh, this is really cool. This is really cool. Good job on this. Good job on this. Right. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
different situations. I think they're for different purposes.
Right. You mentioned it's helped you in your own career. Go into a little bit of detail of like some examples of like how, I mean, obviously your understanding of certain topics have gotten better, but how has it helped you the most?
It really just comes down to like someone be like, hey, I want to learn about this, and I go, well, I kind of know how to do that, but like I want to make sure I know how to properly explain that. And so I go and like refresh myself, and I'm working on like sound design was a huge one that people wanted to know.
Right.
Like, hey, how do I make a strong bass sound? It wasn't like, how do I make the Skrillex sound from Kill Everybody, right? It wasn't like a specific thing. It was like, I want to know how to do this technique for this sound. And it's like, that's the question to be asking, I think. So people had a lot of really good like topics that they wanted to learn about. And so like, I think it really forced me to like make sure that I properly like fully understood them and made sure that I was ready to actually.
That makes sense. Yeah. I guess my next question would be what has been the main challenge for you? Like, what out of those things that you've taught other people, what has been like the main challenge?
Yeah, I guess like the hardest part is just like keeping up with how fast it is, and like I think that's just like a symptom of like the modern music industry and also just like life in general right now. Like everything is just like go.
Everything's streaming and everything. Yeah, it's new shit
quick
all the time.
and like
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not like absolved of this. Like my attention span is definitely shorter than it used to
Yeah.
be too, and like I don't lock into stuff as like excitedly as I maybe used to either.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard because like you want to actually like put in a lot of time into your craft, but at the same time you want to make sure, hey, I have concert releases coming out that are actually good and that people are able to, one, listen to what I'm doing, and two, like that I can actually like use that as leverage to like grow what I'm doing, right? Because I know when I first started out like doing stuff under this alias, it would be like I put out a song and like, cool, now I got to make another song. Like it was like I don't have the back catalog. I made a song and like I spent however long on that, like whether it be a week, whether it be like 3 or 4 months, whatever it was, and it's like cool, it's done. All right, I'm gonna send it out, and then we'll hopefully put it out sometime soon. And that was back in like 2015, 2017 era, and nowadays label schedule so much farther out in advance. Like if you want to get something out, like for example, like I sent a bunch of music out in like August, September, to places in like the last couple months as well. I'm booked through like next year at this
Holy
point.
shit.
Like not like fully, but like
yeah.
pretty far into next year already. And so like if people are booking out really far in advance now, and so like, and I realized that this year too, because like I have an EP coming out in November. I finished that thing in like March, and I was like, maybe we can get this out in like late summer. And it's like, nope, everyone books out really far in advance, which I think it's good and bad, right? Like you just need to have that expectation going in, and it makes it easier.
Does it make it easier to develop a back catalog?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 'cause you have more time, basically. Yeah, you have more time.
Yeah, I have so much music. Like I have all that music that's like signed and ready to go. But like I have more that's like, okay, well, what am I gonna do with this? And in that time, I'm probably gonna make more. And so it's like, okay, well, maybe those don't even get the spotlight. Maybe I focus more on these new ones. But yeah, it lends to better decision making with that. But yeah, I think the thing on top of that too is I try not to overthink stuff as much as I used to. It's like when I was spending like 6 months on a song, there was no need for that. Like, why was I spending 6 months on that?
A lot of young and new producers spend so much time on songs.
Yeah, and I don't blame them, because I think it's like this idea that like, oh, and it's still ingrained. Like you have one big song and then that's good, you're set. So like let me like make sure this is that song. And like if you go into that mindset every time, it's way too much pressure. Like it's too much pressure, and you're worried about like the outcome rather than the song itself, right? Obviously we want the song to be as best it can be, but the second you start letting like external factors play into it, you start screwing it up. Like, oh, well, I need this to be my next big single, so it has to be really good. And also it has to appeal to the club, and also it has to appeal to Spotify, and like you're trying to do like everything with like one song. It's like, no, just like let the song be what it's gonna be.
You're gonna make
and
another
then
one.
Move on to the next one. Yeah. And so once I started doing that, and once I started just like going with the flow and like just like letting it be and not like screwing with it too much, I started like quadrupling how much music I was making.
That's cool.
Yeah. And that helps out with like that releasing stuff, right? Because now you have like a back catalog and you can decide what you want to do with it and everything.
When was the time that you realized that you're like, okay, now I need to actually start building a back catalog? Because I feel like that's very important to have songs like on deck, even though they maybe just be sitting on your computer and maybe they never see the light of day and maybe you never release them, but still you have stuff just in case. Like I just think that's so important. When did you realize that?
Yeah, I think it was like, I think I always knew I needed to do it. It was just I was going through college and doing all this stuff. And I was like, I literally just don't have time. Like I don't have time to do it. I'm like barely making like enough music to put out as it is, right? So I think like once I graduated, I was like, okay, like now is the time to like really start building this out. But the thing is too, like I started building it out, and then like the songs would get rejected, and I'm like, well, shit.
Oh.
What am I gonna do now? I just made a bunch of music and it all got rejected. Like, damn, I guess I gotta make more. What are you gonna do, right? Yeah. What are you gonna do? It's like, I mean, and you can also put it out yourself if you want to, but I trust people's opinions on stuff.
Yeah.
So when they like, if I send something out to like a bunch of places and they all reject it, I'm like, okay, something's wrong there. Like, that's not a coincidence that that's happening. Like, and, you should take label opinion, like any like opinions of like a label or peer, like with a grain of salt. But also don't totally dismiss. Don't totally dismiss it.
Yep.
Don't be like, oh well, they turned it down. Well, they just don't get it, man. like no, they probably have like a decent enough reason actually.
Yeah.
You gotta stride that line. Yeah, I think I really only started like properly building out back catalogs like 2020. Okay. And it's because I don't know, 2020 I was kind of like, damn, none of this really matters, huh? I guess I should just like make as much music as possible and not worry about like if it's gonna appeal to live. I didn't have to worry about if it's gonna appeal to lifestyle or not. We weren't doing live shows, so I started writing a bunch of melodic music, and then I was like, what if I take that melodic music and incorporate it with the heavy stuff I was doing, and then now I'm making this other thing, and like it just allowed me to explore more.
And then all of a sudden, a sword club.
Yeah, exactly. yeah.
Which was really good, by the way. I love that song.
Thank you. Yeah, we're talking about doing another. I need to start on that. Yeah.
Oh, sick! Hell yeah!
Yeah.
I've interviewed Eric as well. He's
great
amazing,
dude.
Amazing person. I was gonna ask, when you put out a song and it does well, how long do you think the average time you have until people might like it and it might do really well? But then how long do you have until people start moving on to like the new next thing?
It's hard.
I've heard a week. I've heard 2 weeks. I've heard a month. I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I feel like I'm in like a odd situation here where like my stuff, when I put it out, it doesn't like immediately like shoot up and then drop off, right? I feel like a lot of the songs like they'll have their initial peak or whatever, and they'll kind of hover, and then eventually they just sort of pick up traction. I don't. It's just the algorithm or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't explain it, but like the same thing happened with like the one with Eric. Like it did fine. It did well starting off, but
Yeah.
then like over time it's just like continued going up, and it's the same deal with the one I did on Night Mode. The song with Sounder, Feel Alive. That song did well, but then it all of a sudden like got picked up by Spotify playlists, and now it's getting in like the radio algorithm
Yeah.
and all this stuff. So it's at like almost 2 million now, and I'm like, when did that happen? Like I look at my artists, I'm like, wait, when? Like,
Yeah.
like
Wow.
what? So like, you know, it depends. Sometimes you put out a song and it doesn't hit immediately, but
Yeah.
sometimes later on down the line, people are like, wait a minute, I really fuck with that, and like, so that's why it's worthwhile to put out stuff, even if like, you know, maybe it flops, air quote flops, you know, whatever
How
you consider that to be, or it doesn't perform as well as you want it to immediately. That doesn't mean it's not going to do something down the line.
I'm sure until you started seeing that actually come to fruition in the earlier
Sure.
days, like it was probably like a mind fuck. Like you were like, damn, it's not doing well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how did you get past that? Like before you started seeing that, because now you're like, okay, well, it could do later. It could do different things later on. So,
Yeah,
like, I'm not
yeah.
going to worry about it now. But how did you kind of get past that mental block of like, fuck, it's not doing well?
Well, I try these days to just like not let that like impact the music that I make. It's not like a thing of like, I mean, like obviously I think if a song does really well, you should probably take that into account. Like, hey, maybe I should like move the release calendar around a little, like put out some more stuff that's like fitting that style now, and like, you know, push on that traction, right? But if a song like doesn't necessarily do well to start, it shouldn't be like, oh, I should never make that again,
Right.
right? Like, no, it's stupid. But like, I think you have to take the number again. It's like grain of salt, right? You can't look at the number and be like, oh, well, it's not as big as I wanted it to be, so I have no value now. Like, you know, like you gotta chill. It's like, it's fine. It's just a number, you know, and maybe you needed to do more on the promotion beforehand. Maybe you need to do more promotion on the back end. Maybe just like, maybe it didn't come out with the right team, right? Maybe it's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
this is a good song, but like it just wasn't the right audience for that song. And there's all sorts of these different factors, and it's hard to know like exactly which one is like the main one, but you know, you can kind of take these little data points over time and just make mental notes or actual notes. You know, if you're a spreadsheet fiend, I'm not, but I know like some people are.
Yeah. That's how I am. I write everything down.
Yeah. So I'm not that data driven, but you know, I'm more of a touchy feely kind of guy.
Yeah.
But
Which is good though. You're an artist, so.
yeah, I guess so. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You gotta look at the stuff, but I just don't make it your entire self-worth, and try to just like be like objective with it. Just like, cool, so this one didn't do as well. Why was that?
Mm-hmm.
And don't be like,
better next
make
time.
that mean something. Don't make that mean something about the song or about you as an artist. Just take it at what it is. It's
And it
just
depends
numbers.
a big piece of it too is like how long you've been an artist, how much of an
Yeah.
established audience do you currently have? Like that also like you can't compare yourself to someone who has 10,000 followers if you only have 2. Like
Yeah,
that's
totally.
a big factor too.
100%.
Yeah. Have you experimented with how often you release music? Like does that have a factor? Do you think at all?
I feel like I haven't been able to experiment with how quickly I release
Yeah.
music. I think it's important to have a consistent release schedule. I just haven't like been fortunate enough to like have that land until like recently.
Yeah.
Like this is the only time in like recent memory where I'm like, yeah, I'm scheduled out for like months on end. Like that has not been the case, and it's just. But I think having consistent releases is good as long as you're like kind of building a narrative through that to some extent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, not as long as, but it has a benefit if you think about the narrative.
Right.
Right. If you're like putting out a decent amount of music consistently, people are seeing your name more often. They're going, oh, well, he's doing cool stuff, right? If I put out one song and it's really cool, that's awesome. But like, again, kind of that attention span thing. Someone else puts out another cool song the next month, and now they have forgotten about that. But if I put out a really cool song, then okay, I'm putting out a cool song. Whoa, that one was really sick. Wait, he put out how many songs in the last 6 months? Let me go check those out too.
Right.
It helps build traction.
Yep. That's smart. That's very smart. I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Have you managed to continue producing from like a genuine place, even though you've kind of, I guess maybe like with the release schedules and stuff, like keeping up with the release schedule? How have you found the balance between those two things?
Yeah, I just when I sit down, I just try to make whatever I'm feeling that day,
Yeah.
and I try not to like think too much about the other stuff. I mean, look, sometimes I sit down and like, because like recently I did this where I was like, I want to make like some more like kind of live ready music. I feel like I'm kind of lacking some of that in my catalog, and it's stuff the way that I've always thought about it, and like people have been shocked when I say this, but I'm like, I play a bunch of different styles in my live sets, and I'm like, I want to have music that's for me that I'm playing that's in that style, right?
Yeah,
so like, I want dubstep, I want melodic stuff, I want drum and bass, I want like the weird stuff that lands somewhere in the middle. So like, I like making the stuff that I like playing and that I like listening to. And so for me, when I sit down, it's like, what am I feeling today? And like, usually it's just like, I just put something down and I try to just get a vibe going and like, cool, I'm just going to like build off of that and go, and I'll make it and I'll figure out what I'm doing with that later. But I'm just going to make it and make it what it is and file it away. and I just work quick these days. Like I get an idea down like a day or two, and then it's like cool. I'm gonna like I can tweak that, I can make adjustments, but the core idea is there in that first session.
That makes sense. Yeah. How long has it been since you first started producing?
When I start, it's been like 10 years now.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a long time.
You're quick then. Yeah.
yeah. You sort of develop the skills to do it quick after a certain amount of time. But I also like I save all my sounds. Like I make a cool sound, like cool, I saved it. And so like I make my workflow is good at this point.
Organization is huge too. Yeah.
Huge. I didn't used to reuse anything. I used to start with like no template. I would pull in new drums every time. Just like it's a waste of time. Like, you know something works, just use it. Like what's the point of that? Like why am I making the same respace every time I sit down? Just
and when you
reuse
things too, that's kind of it helps build your brand and like your sound too. Yeah,
it's like, a huge part
the same
of it.
drums. Yeah. Have you ever had to face like the like a time crunch for like a label release or anything like that? Have you ever gotten put?
Oh yeah.
Can you explain? Can you go into depth a little bit about that? Because I'm curious about when this happens.
I haven't had like too much with like the label crunches.
Okay.
I think I've had like some in the past where it's usually like remix deadlines. Those are usually the ones that kind of come up quick. Yeah. So like the remix I did for Griffin, that came out like a couple weeks ago, like a month or two ago, I think.
Oh, I did hear that. Yep.
Yeah. So it went a little under the radar, but yeah, some like stuff with like promotional things and contracts, yada yada. But yeah. So like with that one, like the person who like hooked me up with that remix, she's just like, cool, like you have the opportunity to do this, but like we need it in like 2 days. And I'm like, cool, and I just sat down and I just did it. And it was funny because like I remember like I got a text because like I'm friends with like someone that she's friends with as well, and so he texted me like, yo, she told me they're listening to remixes like right now, do you have it? And this is day one, and I just have like I already did the whole thing. I was just like I kind of wanted to like mix some stuff with her. I'm like, yeah, sure, here it is. And like they also do like, cool, he loves it, cool, we're good.
Okay.
But it was really quick. It was like I had a deadline that got basically cut in half just because it was like, hey, there's just an opportunity you can jump on if you want to. But yeah, in that case, it's a lot of like that. Like I just put down the idea I had in that moment. And I was like, I can't think about what if I did that idea? What if I did that idea? What if I did that idea? Like, no, I'm gonna dedicate to that first idea and like really go all in on that. And that's what I found has been pretty good as far as like making stuff quickly and making stuff that's good.
Is it?
Because I'm not polluting it with like. It's a little stressful, sure, but I also like I've just become confident in my ability to make stuff really fast now. So like I'm not worried about it anymore. I'm like I know I can make something in a day. Like it really is not an issue anymore.
Well, that's good.
And it helps when you have the confidence in that.
It helps.
If you don't have the confidence, then it's like, damn. I mean, I've had remix downs before where like I had weeks and I like couldn't come up with anything good, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like
I know a lot of artists who kind of going off this point deal with like writer's block. Do you? I mean, I know it's been a while, and you said you do things pretty quick, but I'm sure in the past you've dealt with writer's block.
100%.
But do you still deal with that too?
I mean, occasionally. I think I just have tools to like I expect writer's block at this point. I'm like, I know it's gonna happen every now and then, but I think when I experienced writer's block the most is when I was like one, just like stressing out about my music production, like how much am I making, and like how many songs am I making, not how much am I making like monetarily.
Right.
How much music am I making? Is it good? Is it getting signed? I was just so in my head and stressed out about all these like external things. And the second I kind of stepped back and just started going, I'm gonna make what I want to make right now, whatever it is. The more the ideas just started flowing, right? When I was like, no, I'm a dubstep producer, I'm a like bass producer, I can't make something melodic. That doesn't fit. Like I can't do that. People aren't gonna fuck with that. It's gonna be weird, like whatever, right? So I would like halt myself from doing stuff. I'd be like, wait, like I'd be in the middle of like what I thought might be a cool idea, and it's like that voice in the back of your head, like, yo, like, I don't know.
No one's gonna like this.
I don't know, man. That's not cool. And so you start questioning it. Now I'm just like, shut up. I just like don't listen to it anymore. I'm like, I don't even like. I've done it to the point where I'm like, I don't really think that voice exists anymore. And if it does, I make an effort to be like, no, it's okay, whatever. It's the way that I think about it is like, you have like your like left brain, right brain, right? You have your like creative side and you have your analytical side. Mm-hmm. I take the analytical side and I go, you fuck off while I write this. We're not touching this. We're not touching this right now, right? And so the idea is totally there. And once the idea is totally there and I want to come back in with that, cool. But like, that's the thing is like, I don't combine them anymore. If I'm writing, I'm just doing whatever. And that's been the best way is like, I just don't worry about that stuff anymore. I try to get as much down as possible. And then, okay, this can come in later, and I can worry about that later.
Yeah.
I'm literally doing that right now. I'm like, I think like a thing on top of that is like learning new information helps a lot. I try to like keep my musical palette and like what I listen to constantly evolving. So I like to seek out music that's like fresh and that I don't, maybe I don't understand initially, but that I want to like check out. So like I listen to a lot of like IDM and like indie rock and stuff like that, like and pop and other stuff. Like I really like when we're talking about like why do you make all these different genres, like I do genuinely listen to like everything.
Yeah. I don't know if you listen to country or not, but I grew up on country. I listen to everything.
I don't listen to a bunch of country, but like I'm like, it's one of those things like, people are like, I like everything except for country. Like country songs you love. Like shut up. Like there's plenty of country that you would love, man. Like it goes for any genre. I think there's always like great new music to be found, and nowadays, like with how many production resources are out there too, there's so many great techniques you can learn about too. Like it's not even, I'm not sponsored, but like the one that I like a lot is like Lux Cash on Patreon. They do like really advanced like sound design and like IDM, like ambient kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is sick. Like I don't necessarily know how I'm going to incorporate this into my production, but it at least gets me inspired and thinking about this stuff in a new way. So it's hard to get in a rut when you have like new tools to attack things with.
Or working with a mentor, right? I mean, I feel like, I don't know if you still do that or not.
Sure.
But I'm sure a lot of people.
I don't right now, but
working with a mentor, just even at your level, where it's just like, just writing or co-producing with someone, or working on a collab
like
or something.
And even like bouncing ideas off of peers.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I made this thing. Like, what do you guys think about this? And like, again, like, don't get into the rut of like, I'm making the song in Discord and they're not fucking with it, so it's a bad song. Like, no, like they're probably just like smoking weed or like doing something else.
What would be some of your tips for people who might be listening that struggle with writer's block a lot?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of some of the stuff that I was saying. I think it's like, try and learn some new stuff. Like if you're really stuck, right? If you're like really stuck, you're like, I've been going months and like I haven't been able to make anything. That might just be a sign that you like actually need to take a break. Like get out of the DAW for a little bit. Like go do something else that's inspiring to you outside of this. Like focus on another interest. Like it sounds counterproductive, right? How am I supposed to get better at producing if I'm going and doing something else? I want to get better at music. I want to make better music. You're telling me to like go like work out? Like what do you mean? Like no, like finding like something else that you can do and you can build on. Like I'm a huge like gym guy at this point. Like I go like 3 or 4 times a week at this point, like on a regular basis. Like I've literally been waking up like 6 a.m. to go to the gym.
Nice.
Like, we're at that level now. So props. Big that's props. Something like, thank you. But like that's something outside of that I'm like, I'm passionate about that and I put in the work for that, and it's just like nice, and it doesn't have anything to do with music like at all. And having something like that where it's an outlet for you to go and like do something else and not have to worry about this and get inspired in a different way is conducive to actually making better stuff, right? It's like you have this like tank of like inspiration that you're pulling from, and like you can create a certain amount of it by just doing stuff at your computer, right? But there's also just like life inspiration to pull from. Like it's small things, right? It's like, I don't know, it's like cheesy stuff. It's like you're like you're on a walk and you're like, that's a really cool sunset. Like small stuff, right? Like just live life a little.
Yep.
And I mean, outside of that, on like the more like actionable stuff, outside of like, hey, take a break and like go like do some other stuff, like learn things, right? Go and like learn new techniques.
Forever student mindset. Always learn. I love learning.
I mean, in music in particular, like there is no ceiling to how good you can get at music.
Yep.
No ceiling. I mean, I was talking about this with like someone who's a musician. He's like in his like 40s or 50s, and like, he's like, 20, 25 years older than me, and like we both agreed. We're like, yeah, this thing, you never top out on this. Like there's constantly new stuff to learn. So like, open your mind up to some new stuff and like try listening to some new tunes and like pulling from various places. And if all else fails, and just sit down and just get the analytical part of your brain off. Like just write.
Yep.
Just write. Make a bad beat. Sit down. Like I'm gonna make a bad beat right now. And by the end of it, I bet it probably won't be that bad, but you'll have a full beat.
Yeah.
You'll probably be like, actually, this is kind of cool.
It's done. Yeah.
It's just goofy. Yeah.
That reminds me of I think it was Virtual Riot. It was a bunch of Disciple guys like Mode Step and Barely Alive a few years back. They made an entire song, beats included, off sounds that a Lamborghini made.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that video?
Yeah. I did. Yeah.
Very good video. And it's like you can literally make anything out of anything, especially in a DAW software.
It's all just sine waves, man.
Yeah.
It's all just a bunch of sine waves.
Yep. Awesome, man. Well, we are kind of getting to the time, but I wanted to get into one more topic before we get out of here, and that is your new EP. What does that new EP consist of, and what can we expect from that?
Yeah, so new EP, it's going to be like 5 tracks, and that's dropping in November. So at this point, by the time you guys are seeing this, 2 of the singles have already come out. At time of recording, Sell Your Soul with Tynan came out.
Oh, yeah.
And then the next one that's coming out is called Tonight, and that'll be out by the time you guys see this. And it's another dubstep tune. It's a solo one.
Sweet.
But the idea with this EP was like, I think I like made a tweet about this a while back. I was like, I really love like, you know, really heavy music, and I love this music that has like a lot of purpose behind it. And a lot of the time I feel like these things can't like coexist, right? It's like I have like really club ready music, and I have stuff that like means a lot. And like my last EP was like all that. It was just like, this is like, I don't care about live sets at all. This is just like for your headphones.
for listening,
like, it has like deeper meaning to me. And like,
How long
everything
ago
like
was that?
That was March of last year.
Okay.
But I made it in like 2020.
Got it. Because
Yeah,
I know a
in,
lot
like,
of people who
2020.
produce. I even I don't know if you listened to Soki or not, but he made an entire album that was like. He
Yeah, it's great.
Rarely ever plays live. It was just.
Oh,
for
yeah,
listening purposes.
yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people did
But
that
it was
during
like-
COVID time.
Totally, it was a time to explore that, and I'm glad
Yep.
I was able to. But
Yep.
then I was kind of like, look, these two worlds are here, and like I don't know how they're supposed to coexist. And I remember, I think it was like Mustard Plaid. I promise you can do that. And I was like, maybe he's right. And like, so I started messing with it, and I started kind of experimenting with combining, you know, this more kind of pretty melodic style where like there is like some sort of purpose behind it before I even start the song, whatever it is, and marrying that with the heavier stuff. So
Sweet.
the EP is called Existentia, and it's all about these like existential concepts, or like sell your soul,
Yeah.
right? Like, is it worth it for me to do something that I don't want to do that's going to give me some sort of like career benefit otherwise, or whatever? And like I legitimately started the song with that like idea in mind.
Wow.
And the other one after that is Prophecy with After My Fall. It's literally a song about like determinism. Like I have like some, if you don't know what determinism is, it's like this idea of like, determinism is like, hey, humans don't actually have any free will. You're basically just like a complicated algorithm. So it's like, is that true, or do we have free will?
Yeah.
So the song is like about this, like, is it a prophecy? Are we like set in our fate and what's going on, or do we have free will? And that's what the song's about. And like,
Interesting.
After My Fall is like a good homie, like, so like I hit him up. And
He's
I was
done
like, yo,
other
I have
work
this
too.
chorus that I wrote.
I feel like I just saw his name
He's
somewhere.
worked with tons of people.
Yeah, yeah.
He does stuff with like Ruffalo and Black Sheep. a
Okay,
lot.
that's where I've seen it. Yep.
And he also just put out an EP on Welcome.
That's
But
dope.
yeah, so I was like, hey, I have this chorus, like, and I was like, it's a little heady. Are you cool with that? He's like, oh, let's fucking go. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, so he wrote all the verses and everything and recorded, and we did that. Then there's this other song on it called Limitless, and that one's like a more pretty one. It's like this, you know, really kind of like, it starts off like big wall of sound, then down to like piano, very calm, and sort of develops across. It's like, all these songs are like the most like, just like try hard shit. Like if you look at the project files for these, they're just like ridiculous and like really intricate. Like two of them crash every time I try to open them.
Oh,
And I'm
no.
like, so like I updated
Oh,
the
boy.
masters for two of them like the other week, and I was like, and like John over at Monstercat was like, so are we getting new stems for these instrumentals? I'm like, dude, like if I can open it again, like maybe.
Oh my gosh.
Like, yeah.
That's
But
stressful.
it's basically the whole EP is just me like toying with those ideas.
Is
And then,
it
like,
what primary genre is it? 'Cause I know you produce.
it's mostly dubstep.
Yeah, okay.
Like it's mostly dubstep throughout. Yeah, like I think like all of it is. Yeah, I mean all of it is dubstep, right? Like there's a couple more like future bassy kind of like I guess like future rhythm is the term, whatever you want to call it, where it has the like kind of blending. But I tried to do those blends throughout. Like I wanted it to be dubstep, but I wanted it to have those melodic tinges throughout the drops of all of these songs. So, but I wanted to approach it in a way where it's like I'm not gonna approach it like I'm making future rhythm. I'm making color bass. Insert like, you know, melodic dubstep subgenre here. I just wanted to make dubstep that had melodic tones, and I let that mean whatever it needed to mean for the song.
Sweet.
So I think as a result, I got something that like sounds more like me and more, you know, I don't
Very
know,
unique,
it
yeah.
felt a little bit different, like, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that was all it was. It was not like anything against those. I just didn't want to, you know, make something that sounded like, you know,
Someone
something
else.
that a bunch of other people would have made as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. So I tried to be a little bit more experimental with that. But
Dope.
yeah, it's a fun EP. It has a lot of like heady concepts, but I think it's still like super approachable, and so it's fun.
Awesome. What was the reasoning? I mean, other than the fact that you have an amazing relationship, obviously, with Monstercat, what did you think about did you even think about pitching it to other labels, or was it just,
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it, but it
Okay.
ended up being that like Monstercat really was like the best
Yeah.
place for it, and they the second that they heard the song with Tynan, they're like, yo, dog, like, can you send that to us? Like, so they were like, they've been asking me about that one for a while, and so when I had the whole EP, I'm like, all right, cool, like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
That's awesome. And you said it gets released November. What's the date?
November 14th.
Awesome. Excellent.
That's the date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. I'll when you start promoting it, I'll go ahead and pre-save it. Everyone will go pre-save that when
Yeah,
when
go
you
pre-save.
when you see it. Awesome.
Smash
man.
that pre-save.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, do you have any questions for me?
What has been like one of your favorite interviews on here? Like,
Oh,
what's like
shit.
something that like you learned? Not even like your favorite interview. Like,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
your favorite thing that you've like gained from an interview
That
on
I've
here?
gained?
Where you're like,
Ooh.
that's like kind of perspective changing, or like that's something interesting that someone.
I'm
can say.
more. I interview a lot of artists because I feel like a lot of our fan base and our listeners are producers. But I think for me, because I'm going in the business route, so I'm going to,
Totally.
I'm going to be going to school at Icon for their music business program, becoming a manager.
Okay.
And then this is kind of just like a passion project, good for networking, good for just I just have fun with it.
Sure.
But I think my favorite, to answer your question, I think my favorite one was I really liked some of the things that I can't even say anything in specific, but I don't know if you know Relentless Beats out of Arizona.
Yeah.
Jason Euler and I have built a pretty solid
Oh,
relationship.
yeah. I know him.
His episode was amazing, and he just obviously because he's a manager, he's more on the business side. So I think for me personally, I think I learned the most from him, and he continues to shout out Jason. I love that guy.
Yeah, shout out Jason.
He continues to help me out, and like just any questions I have, he's always super approachable. So I think to answer your question, I think it was that interview. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. The last couple questions for you. How can listeners find you / support you other than listening to the new EP when it comes out and pre-saving that?
Yeah. So I'm on all socials at Slippy_music. The only one that's not that is Facebook, but I don't think anyone uses Facebook anymore.
Yeah,
so
no one
I'm
does.
not too worried about it. It just doesn't have the underscore. They don't let you have underscores for some reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where you can find me on everything.
Sweet.
It's gonna be the same deal on Spotify and Apple Music. It's Slippy on everything.
So I'll plug that in the description as well. Final question: if there was one piece of advice you could tell yourself when you first started making music, even before the rebrand and everything like that, what would it be?
It's not that serious.